In this video, we'll be making sure that the user enters only string values into an array of strings using the character class and the isDigit method. So this video is a response on a comment that I got on video titled Java 38, and the comment says how to deal with string type that the value must be a string, not an integer. So this following demo will help you if you're trying to figure out if you want the string to only contain characters. And in addition to that, what we're doing is we're putting that into an array of strings. So what we've currently got is our scanner object. It's been created and we've also closed it, and everything will go in between. So we'll start off by asking the user the size of the array. Enter the size of the array. And then we want to put that into an integer. Array size is equal to, now initially using the input class where you can use a string. Next line. But remember, this comes in as a string using the next line method, but that's being stored into an integer, so there's a conflict with the data type. So we can use the integer wrapper class and access the parse to int and parse this whole string into an integer. And now the data type is compatible. Next, what we want to do is create an array of strings. We'll indicate that it's an array with square brackets, and we'll call this array of strings, and it will be a new object of arrays, and it will be of size, keep putting the wrong key from the keyword. It will be of that array size that the user specifies. Next, let's loop through, not loop through the array. We want to loop that number of times so that the user can put in a string into our array. So starting at counter 0, counter is less than that array size, and counter plus increments by 1 each time. And what we want to do is we want to ask first the user, let's ask the user to enter a value. Let's just say value, and we'll store that into a variable called value, and we'll use input.next line to grab a string. And then what we want to do is at that index, we start with 0, 1, 2, and until that array size reaches, or that value reaches, or the counter equals that value basically, or less than that value. Then what happens is we want to assign that value into our array. So when counter becomes equal to the array size, we stop the loop. All right, so before we check for any characters and any digits, let's do the same thing. Let's just actually loop through the array. So to loop through the array, we just want to print the content. So we'll use I'm going to use a printf. So what we can do is we can, for debugging information, we just want to check value at index, and then I'll just use a formatting rule to indicate there's going to be an integer, and is another formatting rule, and then a new line. And then to replace this value, we will put counter, and then to replace whatever the value is, that string is pretty much the value that's sitting in the array. Let's give this a run and make sure that we don't have major issues going on there. So test 1, test 2, test 3. So we can see that the loop looks good. It's running 3 times and it's displaying the information. Now this is not really information that I'd like to print out to the user, so I can take it out. I might just go back to a new line like this and just print the content of the array like that. The other thing is I don't don't want the value to be on a new line when it's entered by the user. So just run it one more time, say 3. So test 1, test 2, test 3, it's looking good. Now what we want is, so from my understanding of the comment, is we want to make sure that it's only a string, not an integer. So we want to not be able to accept such a string because it's got the value 1. So what we're going to do is maybe let's create another function that, because we will make, we will reuse that function. Or will we not? Yeah, it's just easier to put this into a function, even if digit, we'll call it digit exists. So if there's a digit, this is gonna return either true or false. So let's just return false for now. And what we want is to actually pass that string. Where is it? We pass that string value, and we want to be checking that string. So what we want to do is let's loop through that string. So I'm going to use, just going to reuse this one, and I'll change a few stuff. So instead of array size, we are checking the length of that. So integer string size is equal to value.length. So now we can stop at that value like this. Yeah. So we're looping through the size of the string, and then what we're going to do here is we're going to check if we want to check using the char@at method, we want to check that index. Okay, now this, we want to check if this is a digit. So what we'll do is we'll run this across or inside, we'll pass it in as an argument to the isDigit method. But this isDigit really belongs to the character wrapper class, like this. So now it's okay. Now this will return true if it is a digit. So what we're saying here is if it's a digit, if any character, if any of these characters is a digit, we want this one to return true and just step out of the loop. There's no point in checking. So at any point when there is a digit, let's say we've got this string, at any point it finds a number, so this becomes true, we step out of the loop. So this one, it will return true if there's a digit, otherwise it will return false. Okay, so let's see how we can use this function. So what we'll do is, before we add the value, we want to make sure that the string doesn't have any digits. So we can say if the digit, and we'll pass that string, if there's a digit existent. So what we'll say is, maybe we'll ask the user to enter the string again. So maybe we'll tell the user what's wrong. Enter. Okay, I could have kept the original and just added with no numbers, and we don't need to redeclare this one. And the thing about this one is it's only going to check it once. The second time I put in a value so we go into the for loop, it's going to check if there's a number the first time only. The second time it's going to take that value, it's going to come back here and put it in even if it has a number. So I'll show you how this works. So we'll say 3 times. So test 1, 2, now it tells me to put in a value with no numbers. I'll say test 2 again, it was okay with it. And test 3, so it only checks it once. So it was still accepting the second round of text. So to make this always check and never step out of this loop until we actually have a string that doesn't have any numbers, we convert the if to a while loop. So now we say, I'd like an array size of 3, and test 1, it says no numbers at all. So if I say test and then I'll put in numbers. So if I put a number at the beginning, it will be also false. So I'm still inside the loop. It's not going to let me out of here if I don't, unless I put a string with that. So if I put a test, unless I put a string without numbers, it's okay with it. But now it's running the second time, so that the loop is running 3 times because we said 3 here. So if I put in a string, a very, very large string, but in the end there's a number, it's not okay with it. Now if I put a string and then a number in between, it's not okay with it. And obviously if we put in even a decimal value, it's not okay, because it's going to count the dot as a string in a way. So this detects both integers and, well, decimals, just because this dot is counted as a string. Okay, so if I say 1, 2, so it took test, this value is okay. It took that one and that one. So if we run this one more time, I will say 1. Oh, sorry, I should have. No, I haven't got. I should have put the size first. 1, 2, and 3. It's fine with that. But as soon as we put in anything that's got numbers, it will never be okay with it. So that was okay, because the letter T is okay, B and C, TBC. So I hope this was helpful, and I hope this really answered the question. If I misunderstood your question, please clarify, and I'm happy to resolve that or do another one that answers your question. Thank you so much for your question, and we'll see you next time.